What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. I'm back, actually full time. That's a lie. I'm not going to be on tomorrow's show. Immediately come back to the podcast, and then I'm not going to be on tomorrow.
I want your job where you just show up once in a while. Yep. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, then nothing would get edited. So
that is fair.
Do you think Colin Coward or Stephen A. Smith is editing their own shows? I don't think so. Exactly. You think Michael Wilbon is out here editing PTI? No, I don't think so. It takes a village to make this happen. And our village is two. Me, and then everybody else is you. So there's that. Anyway, I'm not on tomorrow. We have a guest lined up to help preview the Seattle Kraken Sharks matchup. And today we have a guest coming up after our cool music.
BFF of the show.
Music.
Okay.
Music.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, the picture's here. I thought there was going to be a thing. Wow. Imagine he's like picking his nose or something. I'm your host. I'm your host, Kyle Demetrius. Back with me as always is co-host JD. And you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the guest already. It's founder of Scouching, head of video analysis at McKeen's Hockey, avid flight simulator player. It's Bill Scouch. He is back.
Old Bill's back. What's going on?
This is what, your like sixth appearance? I don't know.
No, it's not that many.
It's like 5.
I don't mind being the Steve Martin of the show. It's fun.
No, it's good. There's a reason we keep bringing you back.
Good.
The people have been clamoring for Scouch. Like since the season started, people are like, "When's Scouch coming back? When's Scouch coming back?"
I'm all ears. Let's rock.
We did say that in January we would start doing draft stuff. So obviously, Will is here. It's January. Yeah, the calendar flips. Yeah, 'tis the season to draft. The Sharks are winning too many games to really have a shot at somebody decent. But they may be in the middle of the pack. Who knows? Their tough schedule is starting now, I believe. So soon. So the Sharks could lose a whole shitload of games in a row and be right into the thick of things. Not quite with Arizona and Ottawa and Montreal, but a slightly cut above them. And hey, no, who knows? You could win the draft from like the 6th spot. Didn't the Rangers do that a couple years ago when they got Lafreniere?
Yeah.
And they win it from like spot 7 or something like that. Cool.
Yeah.
San Jose could get their own Lafreniere, an underwhelming Canadian hockey player.
Oh.
Ooh.
I don't know. Lafreniere hasn't really been amazing, has he?
No.
He's
still basically a child.
And Shane Wright, also a child.
Also a child, yes.
So let's start with Shane Wright, because I mean that's we've heard for a while like Shane Wright's the prize of the draft, but is he really like that special or what?
Well, like I it's kind of the way you phrase it, right? Like he's a really, 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 really good hockey player. Mm-hmm. And it took I think a lot of people now are looking at his production and going, oh, first overall picks don't produce like this in historical whatever. And he's the weakest first overall pick in a long time. And I think to a certain extent, like, I don't think I'm not sure what his impact, real impact in the NHL is going to be. I think he's going to be a really, really strong and stable player. But he's a guy who I think is going to need a supporting cast of scoring to like help him enable things. Like what he's really good at is kind of similar to, from my experience, kind of like what Jonathan Toews is really good at, where on his own, it's sort of like he's always in the right spots. He follows the flow of play really well. He's a strong support playmaker who can turn play around pretty quick. You know, he's got skill, but not as much as some guys, but he uses it better than almost anyone. Like he just knows the routes he has to take the puck to find space and make little passes and just chain events together to get into the offensive zone. Like he's a really good transition player, but he's got a great shot. But I just feel like under higher pace opponents or guys who pressure him really quickly and don't give him time, that's when you can kind of get the advantage of him, because he's not the quickest guy. He's not the flashiest sort of escape gear guy, but
that seems bad for the NHL.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's where I think the limitation is, and I think where he might struggle. But then you see him, you know, really move his feet once in a while to chase down a loose puck, and he's just as fast as almost anyone else. So it's a matter of finding, for him, like the balance between, you know, pushing himself as hard as he can to just like grind through the game as hard as he can, or sort of, the balance of that versus taking your foot off the gas and just being more of a cerebral sort of smart playmaker kind of guy. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, but I think a lot of people are sort of throwing him in the sewer, or at least like really questioning him. And I think that he's improved over the course of this year. I think he lost a season last year, which I think you can tell with a bunch of OHL guys. But I've seen improvements in him over the course of the year. And I just think that if we were saying, what if San Jose wins the lottery and picks first overall? And I've been hearing people say that that's like a curse and would be, the worst imaginable thing. But I think Shane Wright would be a really good match for some of the guys that San Jose's been drafted, who are faster, more skilled, sort of more offensive leaning finishers. Shane Wright passing pucks to William Eklund for the next 10 years sounds pretty nice to me, or passing pucks to Daniil Gushchin or whatever. So it's not the end of the world, and I think he'd be a nice fit. You don't want everyone to be 100% burners all the time, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I will say that I think there's a discussion to be had that someone else could go number one and be the best player in the NHL looking back on this draft. I think that's possible. So
is he like a right situation, right team guy, or is he just he can fit into anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, if let's say Montreal finishes dead last and they win the lottery, he should be pasted to Cole Caulfield day one in training camp.
Makes sense.
If he can't help Cole Caulfield score goals, then nobody can. I think he'd be a really, really good match for that guy. And they're two young guys; they can sort of start from scratch and whatever. So I think that it depends. I don't think a team like Toronto. I don't know. I think he'd fit in pretty much anywhere, because NHL coaches love these guys that can just play really smart hockey, and so you never know. But it's just a matter of impact for me.
Like the Coyotes, who are starting their burn it down to the ground. He's going to struggle at first until they continually add more pieces, right?
Yeah. Where I struggle, I think, with Brad Lambert, and Arizona comes to mind. I don't think he's a guy where you draft him and he's the future of your franchise. I think that you need to surround him with guys that can complement him before he starts putting points on the board. Martin Chromiak is a good player. Lucas Edmonds is a good player, but I've never been huge fans of either of them, especially Edmonds. And in terms of scoring in the OHL, I mean, I've seen Shane Wright create a heck of a lot. I'm not super concerned. It's just the fact, I think, that when you're looking at a first overall pick and you're a team like Arizona, you don't also have that much in the cupboard, really. You have Dylan Guenther, who's fine. I think he'll be a good, him and Shane Wright could be a good fit together as well. But neither of those guys to me are real high pace, high speed guys that can push defenses back and really challenge NHL opponents, at least not yet. And there are guys in this draft that I think do that. So if you put him in, I did. So if you put him in that sort of savior situation of lower pace scoring guys like Wright is and Guenther is, to my experience, then you might run into an issue where it's those two guys don't really have anyone that can, avoid NHL sort of forechecking and pressure, and move pucks up the ice with space and time and everything. Because I'm not sure Shane Wright has that right off the bat, and I don't think Guenther has that right off the bat. It'll be interesting to see, but I don't think he's a bad fit anywhere. It's just going to be a matter of surrounding guys around him rather than him being a guy who makes everyone else better no matter who it is.
He's not a franchise lifter type of guy, right? He needs the right pieces around him.
Yeah, I mean, unless this season is just he's really behind where he has been in his career. I remember watching him 2 years ago, and he was lights out. He just one of the better shots in the OHL and better goal scorers. And this season, it's just kind of, you can see the wheels are turning, but it's not the same player. So if he can catch up to sort of that level that he was before, and it's just the year has been bizarre, then I think he could be a tremendous player to put on your team. But again, that's kind of the uncertainty that's part of the COVID, uncertainty factor, which is sometimes you're going to just knock it out of the park, and sometimes it is what you think it is. I don't know. It's weird.
I think one of the big issues is he probably needs to get in the weight room and eat Built Bars. If I had to guess. And guess what? It's 2022. So new year, new me, new Shane Wright. He can definitely do that. And he doesn't have to worry about his protein bars tasting horrible, because Built Bars are the protein bar that tastes like a chocolate bar, sometimes even better. We've all had the gross, chalky, waxy, chemically tasting protein bars. It's not good. You don't want that. Built bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and there's a whole bunch of flavors. You got your cherry barcia, you've got your coconut, you've got your double chocolate if you just want a mainline chocolate into you. They got peanut butter brownie. They got all sorts of different flavors. They're always adding new flavors. So always check out built.com to see what kind of limited time stuff. We're still asking questions about if there's going to be a peep flavored protein bar coming out. It's Easter season and peeps are the thing. So let us know, Built Bar. We would love to have a peep flavored protein bar to promote. And another good thing is that they're healthy because most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a chocolate bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So you're already ahead of the game right there, even if it is Peeps flavored. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, which is down here underneath Will, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 at 15% off at built.com. If you're watching on YouTube, we told Scouch that we were going to do ads, and I don't think he was prepared. We were just going to tell a child to eat protein.
Yeah, that one caught me a little off guard. I'm impressed. That was good.
Yeah, it was good. So Shane Wright, who is the challenger to the throne? Is it Logan Cooley?
He's close. Sealed? I really like him. I mean, I'm starting to feel like I'm the only Brad Lambert truther left on the planet. I don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to. It's kind of dangerous territory because the World Juniors obviously not happening all the way through. Really sucks. Mm-hmm. But I will also say that it's very, very difficult to come to like actual conclusions or real observations from that tournament based on when they play like 2 games only, especially. And when I watched, I remember watching, the whole point for me is watching all these draft eligible guys and how they play, and how they are put out of their comfort zone into this sort of new team situation and against really, really talented guys who are going to play really hard and play as hard as they can and as fast as they can and try to shut you down. And when I watched the 2 of these guys, Shane Wright and Brad Lambert, and even some of the other high-end sort of draft eligibles in this tournament, you can't help but think that even in a limited sample, someone like Brad Lambert stood out. Like even when Canada was beating Austria, 12-0, I don't remember very often in that game that Shane Wright was like really making a name for himself.
So Brad Lambert, we've kind of been on the he might be the one for our whole goal is to find William Eklund a friend. Yeah. And what's up with Brad Lambert? It seems like there's a real big discrepancy of where he is located.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of saying, I think that the first sign of what might be there is from the World Juniors and how one player, in my view, stood out quite a lot more consistently in terms of trying to make plays and pushing defenses back and everything. Yeah, basically Connor Bedard. But no, and then Shane Wright, I thought he had some nice plays and some, especially off-puck offense and finding scoring chances for himself. I felt like there were some instances there where you saw kind of the smarts of the guy. But you asked about what the deal is with Brad Lambert. I mean, I feel like I'm sort of on an island that's getting smaller and smaller every day. And it's kind of why I track data. For starters, his team has not been very good. I've seen some people. I've seen some. Well, no, the Jyväskylä team that he's been with the last 2 years, they've been terrible both years, and they play poor quality hockey. They don't have the best players at all. I think that I've seen some people saying Brad Lambert's been gifted good line mates, but I looked up his most common line mates this year. They both are Canadian guys who played bottom 6 minutes in production in the AHL, at their highest level. So he's a 17, 18-year-old kid who's this offensive dynamo playing with guys who maybe scored a decent rate in the ECHL. One of his line mates was in the 2nd German division last year. It's really not quite the same. So what I've seen out of him is one of the best passers one of the most reliable passers in the draft. Just he does not miss. He's rocking an 80+% completion rate. He doesn't take the most dangerous passes all the time. Mm-hmm. And he does a frustration with him is that he seems to sort of force play his own way, as opposed to sort of like observing things and spotting open men and just executing on that play. He'll sort of swing around the boards a lot and really look guys off that are easier scoring chances. And I think that's part of the reason why he's kind of struggling to score, is he's trying a little bit too much to sort of cook it up. Like, I've always felt that Brad Lambert to me is like a higher pace, higher speed Ken Johnson. Like, he's that kind of a player where there's not as much raw skill, but just the speed and the energy in his game and the creativity, it's all kind of there. And it's just Ken Johnson's got the skill, so he can sort of play around with guys at his own pace. So I think Lambert, I mean, his transition game offensively, though, it's insane. Like, he is moving pucks into the offensive zone better than literally anybody that I've tracked this season. Like, that includes Shane Wright, and he's doing it in a league against men. So, you know, he's transporting the puck extremely well. He's trying to make plays in the offensive zone, like even relative to his teammate, Joakim Kamel, who people are putting in the top 3. In all of my data except shooting from low danger, Brad Lambert like has a distinct advantage. So I get the feeling that now that he's been moved to a different team that is a bit younger, you know, a bit speedier, you know, they have a bit more fun kind of factor about them, and they're just better. You know, I haven't watched his game from today that he played there. It was his first one. But I would expect that things should improve. Like, it just feels like a better situation for him. People saying that it's questionable because it's his 4th team in 4 years. Like, it's the team he grew up playing for. Like, he played junior hockey with this team 3 years ago. And I'd probably want to, like, if I was on the team he was just on, and you know that they're going to start selling guys off because they're at the bottom of the league, why would you stick around? Like, your draft stock is only going to get worse. So he's doing something. It's one of those things where a kid, I think, is looking out for himself, going to a place where he's always felt comfortable and just trying to find his touch again. Because I think it's there. And I think that his back half of the year, based, like, especially his World Junior, you watch his World Junior, you see what he can do. I feel like the back half will be more of the same. And at the end of the day, I hope he's back up to sort of where I think he should be. I think he's the only guy that logically challenges Shane Wright, in my opinion. That might, I mean, I think that's a really optimistic look on him, but I think he could get there. I just think he can, especially after seeing him on smaller ice at the World Juniors. It's like the way he plays will just move play in the right direction all the time. It just always will. So sign me up for that hype train. And if he goes, he might go like 18th overall from what I'm hearing. Like, it would be nuts, but such is life, I guess.
I think a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, when people start looking ahead to the coming up drafts, I think it was Wright, Lambert, and Matt Savoy were the locked in top 3, and then Matt Savoy just kind of fell off the face of the earth and nobody ever heard from him again. But I think he's back now. So you think Brad Lambert could challenge, but most likely will be in the middle of the pack and then could be the best player taken at the end of the day when we look back in 5 years from now?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think
maybe the best value for his.
Yeah, I think best value. Like, if he, like, I've seen some people from Finland saying he's like barely a first round pick, and I don't get that at all. I just
people from Finland also hate Finnish prospects. Remember,
that's also true. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like, if he's a guy who goes late first, like, I think that's an easy bunt. Like, you just see what happens. Because of what the talent he brings. Like, I don't know, it would be pretty interesting. But I think this year, just like every draft, I think more and more now, you're getting more and more guys that I think perfectly reasonably in 5 or 10 years could reasonably say they've been the best player in that draft. Like, you look back, like, how crazy would it have been to say Lucas Raymond is a better prospect than Alexis Lafreniere? Like, it would have been crazy to suggest that, but, you know, I remember thinking Lafreniere had some issues with his pace and, you know, a bit too much of a focus on offense and not really sort of moving his feet without the puck or anything, and just some habits that I kind of didn't really like. Whereas Lucas Raymond was the opposite. Like, his brain was just always hardwired to just go and know where to be and what to do. And one player has turned that into a so far stellar NHL career, and the other has really struggled to get off the ground. Some of that is the Rangers, I think. But anyway, it's just interesting nowadays to think about, instead of there's one guy at the top and everyone else, it's like, yeah, there might be a guy at the top, but like, with a few, you know, these other guys, like, if you recognize there are flaws in that player, then the other players kind of get a little bit more interesting. It's a hill to climb, but I don't think it's unreasonable.
We've gone like 18 minutes now, and I just want to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky so bad.
Yeah.
I've just been holding
We can
it
do
in
that.
this entire time. This gigantic
it.
human that is going to be really good, I think. But the problem is I feel like he's going to get knocked down in the draft because he plays left wing rather than center. And there's a million centers in this draft. There's Wright, Cooley, Savoy, Connor Geeky. I think Brad Lambert plays a little center. Like there's a million centers in this draft. And I think Slafkovsky might get lost because he's a winger, but he's going to be good, right?
First of all, Slafkovsky's huge. I feel like he'll go high. I think he's
some GM's just going to see how big he is and fall in love with him.
Yeah, I mean he's an interesting player. Like he's not big and bad. Like he's a player who I think has a lot of really
plus has size.
I think he has a lot of really projectable traits for the NHL. Like I don't think he's ever going to be a huge point producer. I don't think. But I think that what's going to happen is that he's going to be a guy that you put on the ice and you're just going to in the playoffs. I feel like he'll be an insanely useful player. Like I've seen guys, and this is again like just in the Finnish Pro League, so it's not the most physical place in the world. But I've seen guys like bear hugging him against the boards, like just trying whatever they can to keep him pinned. And he just, wrestles his arms free, wraps his arm around the other guy, gets his hands on the stick again, and just like tosses a puck to put it in front of the net.
I want this so bad.
Like you can't.
It's just going to be him with a bunch of small children like Tristan Robbins and stuff running around.
He's got this really interesting pass vision. Like he can move it sounds so silly, but the angles where he's capable of passing pucks for someone 6'4", 6'5". Like if he finds space at his, say, 7 o'clock, he'll find a way to send the pass that direction and hit it tape to tape. It's just this weird size and skill version of a hockey player that I think it will be somewhat limited offensively, but I think he'll be a pretty interesting guy to have on your team that can sort of make room for other guys. He's got some skill to step into the middle. He's got a decent shot especially for a big guy. You can work on that. I'm a fan of him. Like he's in the top 10 for me, I think, no doubt. Because just how interesting his package of talents is. It's just so rare that a player comes along that is like this. But I don't know. There is parts of his game that kind of like freak me out a little bit, at least when it comes to like you're using a top 10 draft pick. Like this should be a core player of your team. And if this guy's on the board and so is, say, a Logan Cooley or a Matthew Savoy, that gets really sort of dicey and tough for me. Like it's a tough call. And like I think if you pick 4th or 5th overall this year, that's kind of where you don't want to be. It's like last year where you might just end up 8, 9, 10 and see who falls and just take who's left. But I don't know. Or you get William Eklund at 7. That could work too.
Can we draft him again? Is it possible?
Well, someone similar is going to be there, right? Yeah. Like it's the skill guys are the ones that slip. Like you were saying that all these centers are coming off the board first. Well, all those centers are also like 5'9", 5'10".
For the record, Matt Savoy is like 5'8".
Yeah, so he's small, so he could easily slip, and I think he will. Logan Cooley is, I think, 5'10", and I think that also is enough to make him slip in the draft a little. And so if Logan Cooley is there at 7, and so is Juraj Slafkovsky, I don't think he will be, but if, I'd have a really hard time passing on Logan Cooley because I think that there's enough speed there and enough skill to sort of get around guys like Slafkovsky and sort of leave him behind. Whereas Slafkovsky, I think Slafkovsky with the puck could just power past a guy like Logan Cooley, but I don't know about most NHL competition if they're bigger than Logan Cooley, for example. I don't know, but questions abound, I guess.
I guess when it comes down to like Slafkovsky too, Connor Geeky is also 6'4", a little bit smaller, but plays center. I guess that's kind of a guy where you'd be like, do you want the winger or do you want the center?
Yeah. And I bet that a Canadian team will probably be pouncing on Connor Geeky pretty quick. Like I can see why. Like I think it's a lot of similarities, I think, to Slafkovsky in terms of, how he is under pressure, like how he sort of handles the puck, finds space and makes plays, more in open ice rather than along the boards. But I've been warming up to Connor Geeky, but I feel like he's a guy that you draft and he's maybe a 2nd or 3rd line center. I'm not sure how offensive he'll be in the NHL. He'll be a player. Coaches will play him and they'll play him and they'll play him and they'll play him. But I feel like guys, if he's a top 10 pick, I feel like guys drafted after that might have more of an impact, even if Geeky is a good NHL player, like a perfectly acceptable one.
Kyle, if you wanted to bet on who you think might be the first overall draft pick, where could you do that?
The internet.
And where specifically on the internet?
I don't know. I forgot. I've been away from the podcast too long. Why don't you tell us?
Bet Online has got you covered. So Bet Online would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. Bet Online remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Scouch, we've heard all along, like, this 2022 draft class is supposed to be really, really deep. Is it? Is this like a really deep draft class, or is it kind of not as deep as we thought?
Or is it just dog shit? Like last year?
I wouldn't say dog shit. I think that I like last year's top end group a little bit more than this year's, but it's pretty close. And I think this year, though, the group of, I'd say 20, the group of the top 20, I would say, is really sort of pretty, I think at the end of the day, could be pretty flat based on where guys go. Like the guys that I really, really like. I mean, I think there are going to be some interesting players on draft day to see where they go that I have ranked really high, but most people don't.
Give us a name.
Like Kaliodelius, defenseman, plays on Noah Östlund's team in Djurgården with William Eklund's team. Mm-hmm. He's a defenseman, and he's just.
I don't think Sharks fans want anything to do with Djurgården.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe not him.
I don't know if you checked out the standings, but boy, woof.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Hey, Marcus Sorensen is doing his best over there.
yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, a guy like Kaliodelius, I have ranked top 15. I love that guy. I think he's just a great modern defensive player. He's got offensive potential, but I really, really like that guy. And I think you could get him like late first, maybe in the second round, because I just haven't heard that much about him. I know there are some people who are huge fans of him, but I don't think there are enough to really make that much of a difference. So I think that there's a lot of really interesting talent, especially in Europe, as there always kind of is, that's kind of really in that first round range that could make it really interesting. I think there are some interesting projects later on that you could maybe take a swing on that I've kind of dug, but in terms of really earth-shattering, number of guys to be excited about, like, I don't know. I don't usually get into future drafts, but every time I am there's a lot of times where I'm watching 2022 guys and 2023 guys catch my eye, and I think that I'm not the only one that thinks that. Like the Connor Bedard draft already, like you've got Bedard and Michkov 1-2, and that's, like I'm pretty sure that they're going to be at least very, very, very high draft picks. So that both of those guys, I think I'd take over Shane Wright, and that on its own kind of makes that draft kind of a little bit more interesting. But it's not, I don't know, like this draft isn't terrible. I don't think you can label a draft terrible before it even happens, but in terms of like the number,
we're labeling it terrible.
In terms of the excitement,
2023 also has Adam Fantilli, and nobody cares, and he's probably better than most people in this draft.
Yeah, Adam Fantilli, based on what I've seen this year, would be number one on my list. He's unbelievable. I love that guy. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just. I mean, I think about the excitement level that I had watching these guys. And for me in 2020, it was like there was about maybe 20 guys that I was really, really, really excited to watch, right? JJ Peterka was like 22 on my list, and I loved watching him play. Whereas this year, I mean, I'm watching guys like Frank Nazar play hockey, and I'm going, I like him. He's fine. I just he doesn't really excite you. He doesn't really get you going. Yeah, he doesn't really do it. You can see why he's a good player, but it's not, there's not a oomph to it. And in 2021 it's kind of like it was in that middle ground, right? There was a pretty strong top group, some interesting guys in that top group, but this year I think there's a lot of guys with very wide potentials in their careers, and I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I get progressively slightly less excited as the year goes on at this point.
Well, we're only into January, so by the time the actual draft is here, you're going to be like, these guys are all terrible.
Yeah,
none of them should be drafted.
Probably. No, I couldn't get to that point, but
there's no goalies in the first round this year, right?
No. Yeah, I would be very surprised.
Okay, I'm just putting that out there so people know. There's no.
We have Benjamin Gaudreau. We don't need a goalie.
Almost certainly no.
Gotcha.
What kind of draft position do you think is kind of maybe where the value is at, I guess, this year? Because like we said, there was a bunch of centers. Is it like where do you think that the kind of the value is at?
It's so hard to say, right? Because I think that what's funny about the NHL draft is that you can go in with, I watched a lot of hockey last year, and I went in with sort of a rough idea of who might go where. And I was still like completely blown away with some of the decisions that happened, right?
Like who? Call them out.
Well, I mean,
Mason
like
McTavish.
Well, that didn't surprise me because I figured he's an NHL player. Like someone's going to draft him super high. But I mean,
you mean Tyler Boucher?
Well, that was an example of one where I was like, not in a bajillion years would I have ever thought Tyler Boucher is a 10th overall pick.
But his dad.
I know, but yeah, okay.
I don't think we have many. I don't think we have many children of hockey players this year. Actually, last year was.
Yeah, I don't think there are.
We have. Is Connor Geeky Morgan Geeky's relative?
Damon Lankow's son is in the draft this year. He's not
Damon Jr.
Yeah, I forget his name, but it's Damon Lankow's son. So there's something.
Wait, I think
the New Montreal Canadiens general manager's son is draft eligible. So that's an interesting little fact.
There we go. First overall, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, So it's hard to say. Like, I think you could. My advice to any team in the NHL draft is just load up on second round picks. Like if you're dumping assets, just load up on second round picks or something and just pick up the scraps. Like
the Coyotes.
I would never have thought that Logan Stankoven would have gone 47th last summer. I would never have thought that Aatu Räty would fall all the way to 52. I would never have thought that Simone Robertson would fall to the third round. There are so many examples of just guys who just kind of slipped. Guys who went undrafted, like Lucas Gustafsson, it was just in the All-American game, and I think he's been great this year with Chicago, and he was a guy that I would have drafted last year, and here we are, but that's also nitpicky. But yeah, I just load up on picks. Like, I don't want to be the team that picks like a mid top 10 pick because I feel like you could get players in the middle of the first round that if they hit. Right, like if they work out, you could have a heck of a hockey player, and I think there's quite a few of those. But maybe I'm just too much of a riverboat gambler, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that because the Sharks, the way they're trending right now, is they're probably going to be in the middle of the first round. They're not bad enough to be like a top 10 pick, I think, and I think they're going to be right on that like kind of playoff bubble spot. So if this is the year, if there's any year, this might be the year to be that team.
Yep, potentially.
I
mean, I wouldn't be heartbroken in this.
I mean, I'd rather just have Logan Cooley than try to take a guess on Ty Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, you've also had like an embarrassment of riches too in recent years. Like you've been like that 2020 draft class is coming along just fine.
Yeah,
and the worst pick might be the first one. When it's all said and done, with Ozzy Weisblatt,
he'll be fine. Prince Albert is not.
They
are bad.
Yeah.
He can only do so much. But oh well.
So who's a big riser that we should keep our eye on? Because every year there's a guy that ends up in like the top 5, and they're like, wow, he came out of nowhere.
It's a good question. Like in terms of top 5, I mean, last year that probably would have been like Tyler Boucher. Right, like is that the kind of guy
but no. Tyler Boucher was just a dumb.
The Senator picks don't count.
That doesn't count. They traded Roni Hirvonen and Topi Niemela so they could take Tyler Clevin when they could have just had 2 better players. Who's a guy that's like
remember when McTavish?
Yeah, or Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who ended up going like they just kind of rose through the draft season.
You know what?
They just kind of came up from the bottom of the first round or whatever and ended up in the conversation higher.
I could see that being Owen Pickering. For Swift Current, he's a defenseman. he's hilarious. Like he
that
is.
Name is great. I like that
he's
name.
like he's a
We couldn't get Owen Powers, so let's get Owen Pickering. It's just
yeah. He's like 6'5", I think. 6'5". He's huge, but he's not big. Like he's not thick. He's just he's like Bambi kind of. He skates for a 6-foot guy. He skates really, really well. Like he's really fluid. The skill level on him, he's one of the most skilled defenders in the draft. It's bizarre. He's gigantic and his hands are unreal. He doesn't really. I feel like he hasn't quite put it all together yet and like really turned into sort of the offensive guy that he could be. But I mean, he's scoring really well.
What you're saying is he's Tyler Myers when he was a prospect? Because Tyler Myers was a sick prospect.
Yeah, like I could see that kind of a vibe. I mean, I just love how he plays. It's just so much fun. I don't know if he'll sort of reach the pinnacle, but I feel like an NHL team will think that they'll take a chance on him with a really high pick. He's big, he's can skate, he's skilled, he's really creative, but he also like he makes some baffling decisions, like just dumping pucks when he doesn't need to, and like it's like he doesn't really know how good he actually could be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always a good sign to me, and I feel like that could help him vault up quite a bit, especially because he's gigantic and has an interesting tool set. But I mean, a guy I don't think this is going to happen to, but I would do it if I were a GM, is Gleb Trikazov, who is hilarious. Gleb. Oh my God. Yeah. He's a meme now.
What nationality is Gleb?
He's Russian. He plays for Omsk, same team as Yegor Chernyakov. Who else? Ilya Mikheyev came from there. Anyway, he's so much fun. He is just excuse me. He's fast, skilled, just an unreal shot, but he uses it from everywhere. Like he's a guy who I think he's one of the most talented guys in the draft. Like if you put him one-on-one, I feel like he could take on anyone in this draft. But in the setting of an actual game, it's like he still hasn't quite figured out how to play like high-level hockey. Like he's so supremely talented, but he's really soft defensively. He takes the foot off the gas pedal. He's sort of floating around waiting for pucks to come to him. But once they hit his stick, he's off like a rocket ship, and just he's a video game character in the MHL and the Russian Junior League, but he just hasn't quite put it all together against pro in Russia. But I love that guy, and if you get him in like the second round or something, I think you're laughing. I feel like if the under-18s happen this year, that'll be his coming out party.
I want to ask that guy that's on the it's actually William Eklund's teammate, Noah Uslan.
Yes.
I've kind of heard his name kind of bounce around a little bit. Is he a guy that could be, for the Sharks, a potential there in the middle?
So it was very interesting. I don't know if you guys flipped through the NHL Central Scouting list that just came out, but Noah Uslan was 25th on the European skater list, which to me was a little bit crazy, but I get it. So I really like Noah Uslan, and he's in that top 20 that I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of skill. He's got a good shot. He's a really creative playmaker, like a lot of really good offensive traits. He's a really good sort of manipulator with his skill. So he'll draw guys in, and his hands are really quick. He'll pull the puck real quickly into a new lane, move the puck that way. But the problem is that he doesn't have a real burner gear. He's pretty soft. He's small. He's a center. There's all these sort of red flags, I think, for NHL scouts that they go, he won't work out in the NHL. He's too small. He's not quick enough. This and this and this. I'm optimistic about him personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't, but that only means to me that he might be a guy you pick up at like 35th or 36th, and it's like Jonathan Berggren kind of draft pick. And you're going, okay, like, yeah, he's really talented, just hasn't put it all together yet. Maybe in 3 years he'll get there. And now you look at Jonathan Berggren, gave him 3 years in Sweden to just sort of get better and better and better, and now you're sort of reaping the benefits of that. So I'm a fan of him, but I can absolutely understand why teams might be a little spooked about him. But he's a fun player to watch. That's for sure.
Who are your guys in that creamy middle, like 12 to 18 range? Who are some guys that'll settle in? They're not going to be quite top 10 guys, but they're clearly better than like Denton Matechuk.
I actually really like Liam Ugren, who's Uslan's teammate. they
so
usually
much
play
Hugh Garden
together.
talk.
I know.
Yeah, they have a whole line. They have a whole line
Why?
that should be going in the first round. Like they have 4 guys, I think, that should all be.
This is on their junior team, right? Though, like their
Yeah.
under 20 team, not the actual SHL team.
They've been bouncing up and down all year.
Gotcha.
All of them have been sort of going up and down. But yeah, I like Liam Ugrin. Like he just plays, I think, a game that can work in the NHL. Real strong up and down winger, just good 200-foot work rate, good skill. You know, he can make passes under pressure. He can make passes in open ice, moving pucks up the ice. It's really impressive watching him against pro competition. I think the only games I've tracked of his are SHL games, and I've been pretty happy with him. He's not going to like knock your socks off, but I think he settles in as a real good sort of 200-foot, high effort, skilled winger. I mean, I'll be curious to see where a guy like Philip Machar goes. He could go as high as I think maybe 10 or 11, but you know, he is another one of these sort of undersized guys. He's been playing center most games I've seen, but he is kind of small and he's not super quick. He's kind of like Östlund, but maybe not as, in my opinion, like not as skilled, but similar kind of issues that might push him down a little. But I mean, the other thing about this draft, and I track rankings from multiple different sources, and it's like the most even lists I've ever seen. Like people disagree more than ever, I think, on who should go where. Like it gets so even so fast in a lot of people's minds, even people that I like really trust, who I know do the work. Like generally there's a trend, but it's close. Like there's a lot of mush, I think, to answer your question.
Great. Sharks 2022 draft. Feel the mush. What you're saying is they should be worse and get a good player. Who's the most underrated guy that's in this first round?
Underrated. I mean, I think
it could be Shane Wright if you want it to be.
No. I mean, I think underrated to me, there's like 2 kinds. Like I think underrated on one hand, like I'd say Seamus Casey on one hand, because I like to have the optimistic read on what a player can be, and just sort of say like, what if I were to just give this guy a pat on the back every morning and be like, I hope you just have a great day. Like just keep getting better. Do your thing. Yeah. Strategy. Like a guy where I think that, you know, it's just like the best version of you is going to be awesome. And I think that's Seamus Casey. Like his skating is really, really good, but he doesn't have a lot of speed. If he's not super big, if he's chasing down loose pucks on defensive retrievals or something, he can get beaten way too easily. But his stick checking, his evasiveness on his feet, you know, the skill for a defenseman, I think is unmatched. And I think that there's a lot of really, really bright signs if you're willing to be really risky. Like he's in my top 5. I love him. But that also I recognize as an extremely optimistic view on him, hoping that he be, you know, like at that ceiling, he can be what he can be. But in terms of underrated and not many people are talking about him, maybe Yuri Kulik. Like he's a Czech kid. He's scoring at a pretty good rate in the Czech Pro League for a kid his age. I really liked him in the World Juniors when he was I think he was playing sort of bottom 6 role there. But he had a few impressive little moments with the Czech team and played a pretty big role. I think he was killing penalties as well. Like really smart, responsible 200-foot guy, gets to the net, gets greasy stuff. Like I feel like the right NHL coach who can say, you know, look past the fact that he's not a Canadian but kind of plays that way. I feel like the right situation could make him a really, really useful player. Like I feel like there's a few Czech players out there that kind of play like him. Yeah, I think he's one that I think deserves a little bit more spect.
Is he closer to David Jiricek than not?
Well, they're different. It's kind of apples and oranges, I think. I mean, I liked him a lot more when I first saw him early in the year, and I really didn't like David Jiricek early in the year. But now that I've had some more time to watch them more, I think Jiricek is, you know, like a level ahead. I think that the potential it's similar to, like, Jiricek to me is kind of similar to Seamus Casey, right? Like, I think there's a lot of holes in David Jiricek's game, but if he kind of gets over it and like hits his sort of peak, he could be the best defenseman to come out of the draft. Like the things he tries in the offensive zone, you don't see 6'3" defensemen trying, especially against pro hockey players. You know, he's a big physical punishing guy, which can certainly put him in the penalty box, and you just go, what the hell are you doing? Like, stop it. But then he gets out of the penalty box and, he makes some crazy play in the offensive zone once in a while. But in my view, he's like on paper, in the data I've tracked and everything, he's been bad this year, but you can see sort of where the wheels are turning. And if he works out, he's going to be awesome. But if he doesn't, I feel like he'll be a guy NHL coaches play 20 minutes a night, and they just really should be playing like 14, as like a third pair defensive guy, but coaches love him. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Is he the top D, or is Simon Nemec got the handle on that, or is there a different guy that's going to be the top D?
For me, I've got Seamus Casey as my best defenseman. I mean, I don't Simon Nemec I like, but I just wonder about, like, I always wonder what kind of defenseman in the NHL he plays like, and I do not know. Like, his skill level is, I think, adequate for the level he's playing at. It's sort of, he's more of like a puck shoveler rather than a puck controller. Like, he just kind of he lets his sort of feet guide where the puck goes rather than like hands and feet combined, if that makes any sense. Like, he'll just sort of make a quick turn and just shovel the puck into open ice and shovel it in another direction and go that way. And that's nitpicky, but I feel like that makes you more vulnerable to NHL level defensive systems where they just lead with stick checks and sort of physically erase you and all that. Whereas if you're sort of keeping the puck closer to you, under more puck control with your stick and shifting laterally one way or the other, I think that's more projectable as sort of a high-end defenseman. And with Nemec, I've seen a lot of really interesting things, and he's a top 10 guy to me. But I'm thinking that after 3 years in college, a guy like Seamus Casey could be electrifying on your back end. And I feel like in 3 years, a guy like David Juracek could be like a guy like Mikhail Sergachev for you, like just a rock-solid 200-foot guy with some skill that can play defense. Like, I don't think that's unreasonable. And I think Nemec is just a step behind, but that's mostly because I don't really know what he looks like in the NHL that actually is super impactful.
All right, last question. Who's your biggest stay away?
Ooh.
Us.
Yeah.
Don't draft these two guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
We saved the franchise. We're draftable.
These two ding dongs. There's a couple of guys where there's a couple of guys where they had really, really high pedigree going in, and they have been really, really bad this year. Like Ivan Miroshnichenko comes to mind, and Elias Salamonson have come to mind. Miroshnichenko, I have ranked at 18 right now, but I don't think I'd take him there. Like, I just haven't seen much out of him where I'm going, that's why you were a top 5 prospect last year. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on, but that spooks me a little. At some point, he's worth picking, right? Like, he's not terrible when I've seen him, but it's like,
if you're drafting 10th,
you have this different set of expectations when you're talking about a rebuilding team's lottery pick, right? And I just do not see that level of player in what he's doing this year. Like, and it makes me think that I wasn't seeing it last year either. I still have a lot of trouble. Like, if we're talking about really high-end guys, though, that people have ranked really high, I think the one that I'm spooked the most about is Danila Yurov. Like, early in the year, a lot of people were saying, well, he's not developing because he's not playing minutes. He can't play minutes. It was almost a meme, like, oh, Danila Yurov minute watch. Like, oh, he played 38 seconds. Good for him. But when I track games, like, I don't just track games where guys are playing 40 seconds. Like, I'll track a game where Danila Yurov plays 7 minutes because I think that you can extract some kind of information from 7 minutes of hockey that is somewhat useful. And every single time I've seen him play, even though it's large minutes, or not, well, relatively, I come away thinking, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, I know what you can tell why he's not playing minutes, because if you're coaching him, you wouldn't play him top 6 minutes. He's just not really moving the needle. Like, he's quick, but he's not quick enough for the KHL. He's skilled, but he's not skilled enough for the KHL. He's evasive along the boards and pretty resilient under pressure. Not quite ready for the KHL either. Like, he can get in those situations and seem comfortable, but he doesn't really do much with it. He has some nice moments off puck where he finds some space and gets chances, but I always sort of, my barometer with that is I go back and think about a guy like Rodion Amirov, who was playing KHL minutes and pretty good KHL minutes, and he looked like he belonged there. Like, really efficient transition guy, got scoring chances off his own stick, had potential for more. with Yurov, and I watched him at the World Juniors as well, and just was kind of there. So I have him at 10, but my gut, I don't think has him that high.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end, but it's also strange. Like, it might be that he just, like, he went back to the junior league and dominated, but that's also the MHL, where it's the level of play is just not the same.
He's kind of that tweener right now between the two.
Yeah, he should be at the same level that Miroshnichenko and Trikazov are at, which is the second division, but they don't have a team there, so they can't send him anywhere. So they just keep playing him 3, 4, 5 minutes a night, and he's kind of doing okay. But I don't know. It's another one of those sort of, it spooks me. Not that he's bad, it's just that it spooks me.
Yeah, you there's better bets to make if you're drafting 6 overall. There's better options. Yeah, no, fair. Scouch, let's get you out of here. Where can people find
one last question?
Whoa,
One more. Encore.
How's that William Eklund jersey purchase going, buddy?
Yeah, I should do that, eh?
Yeah, we don't.
I want to get one of the old ones. I want to get one of the old 90s Sharks ones.
The Heritage jersey?
The Heritage jerseys with that on it. 72. I was also waiting out to see if he would keep 72 for the team. So
I think he's gonna
now
keep
that I know. He better.
Yeah.
He better. I'd be so mad if he didn't.
There's no reason that he shouldn't. They assign, once you're assigned to the Barracuda and the Sharks share number pool. So well, he didn't play on the Barracuda, so it doesn't really matter. What am I saying? He's better than that. He's way better than the NHL.
Evander Kane more Barracuda games than William Eklund.
That's true.
It better stay that way. Mark Edward Vlasic, greatest AHL player of all time, 1 game, 2 assists. Sick. Okay, Scouch, what do you got going on? Where can people find you? What are you up to? Let the people know.
Yes, you may find me at scouching.ca. That's my website. All my stuff can be accessed there. I have a Twitter, twitter.com/scouching. I'm also on YouTube there as well. Starting to get into video season, 2 months away. I basically just track a bunch of data myself and add it to a giant database. You can subscribe on Patreon as well to financially support me if you desire. Got lots of good stuff out there. Discord server, early access to all the videos, data dashboards, data spreadsheets, all the good stuff. And I think that's it. Oh, and McKeen's Hockey. I write at McKeen's Hockey with Sam McGilligan and Greg Reback. We're part of the video team there. So follow McKeen's Hockey on Twitter, and you can follow that stuff. I actually had a piece about Matt Savoy and Connor Geekie come out this week, so you can go read that.
There you go. You can find us on the Twitter at we should make hold on, I'm putting more work on JD right now. We should make a little guest thing so that when they talk we can have like their handle or something like that.
I'll do that for next time.
Yeah, add that to your list of the 400 other things you do for this podcast. Yes. I'll just keep talking and not showing up. If you want to get at us though, we're on Twitter at Locked On Sharks. Do you think that the corporate would allow us to change the @ to @ the Content Boys? Or do you think that's gonna be a no?
We are locked on Timo at a time right now. So instead of
we changed it?
Yeah, I figure when you score 5 goals in a game, you deserve the little bump right now for Timo time. So
it's going back
to the Content Boys at some point.
Tomorrow when he doesn't score 5 goals. But anyway, we're at Locked On Sharks. On Facebook and Instagram as well. JD puts up all the work there, so you can check it out if you want. Let us know, message us. We see it all. We'll reply almost certainly, unless we don't like you, and you'll never know if we don't like you. So just send us messages. If you would like to watch us, if you're into that kind of thing, you can watch us with a guest now. It's a little 3-way action. You can do that at YouTube, Locked On Sharks. Creeping closer to 600. I don't think we have a milestone marker for 600, but 1,000. 1,000 is the good stuff. That's where we're doing all the good stuff. So let's get to 1,000 people. Plus, also we make money. Email lockedonsharks@gmail.com. If you haven't emailed us, thank you for your service. However, we did get an email from a man named Michael.
Oh,
it was called Outro Volume. I was not. I was very confused first of all because I was like, "Who's emailing me from Michael?" Anyway, Michael said, "Outro Volume. Can y'all do something?" He's from a y'all state, JD. These are your people. Mm-hmm. Can y'all do something about the outro volume? It's way too loud compared to the audio level of the podcast itself. And I was like, well, what a dick. And then he followed it up, though. Love the content. Keep doing your thing, and put a shaka emoji on there. So he redeemed himself. And I replied, you got it, dog. And by me replying, it means that JD has to do more work.
I'm going to just make it louder.
So he's actually going to make it louder. Yeah. It's the Honeywell.
Like, anytime someone complains about it, I'm just going to make it a little bit louder.
We're contractually obligated by the Honeywelders to make it louder every time. Yes. If you'd like to follow JD and tell him how good of a job he did at the Pittsburgh Penguins game, sitting in the press box and tweeting out the lines like a real journalist, you can do that at my fry. You could do it at Locked On Sharks, but he's at my fry hole.
Kyle, if you want to ask about where he's been and his abductions, you can find him at Kyle Demetrius.
I am not abducting anybody. Just in case the FBI
You've
is
been
listening.
abducted, so
you can find Scouch at Scouching. That's like couch with an ing and an s on the beginning.
Yeah. Well, the S at the beginning and ing at the end.
That's what I said.
Whatever. I mean,
whatever.
Well, anyway,
just don't want to have any confusion. Is all.
We'll be back tomorrow with a preview of the Kraken game. Go check out Locked On Bets if you want to make some money, especially with the NFL playoffs this weekend, and or the Locked On Kraken, or any of the other fine podcasts you can find on the Locked On Network, such as
Locked On Orioles.
I think you've done that one before.
I don't know. They need some love.